Good snowy morning, everyone, here in Western New York. It is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. The Baker Fairburn Hockey Show is back. Another early morning edition here following the Sabres 5-2 loss on Wednesday night to begin their 6-game road trip out in Philadelphia. I'm your host, Kris Baker, here as always, with your Sabres beat writer for The Athletic. That's Matthew Fairburn. Get over to theathletic.com/Sabres. Check out all of Matthew's work, including his gamer from last night's Sabres defeat. Jason Zucker and Bo Byram get goals for the Sabres. Colton Ellis stops 30 of 35. Matthew Fairburn, the Sabres had a really good, I think, first 4.5, 5 minutes of the game last night. But then it just went to kind of crap from there. Sloppy play, a lot of giveaways, and the game was just pretty much taken over from the Flyers from there. But really, I don't know if it was taken over from the Flyers, because at times they were trying to let the Sabres back in, and the Sabres just didn't take those opportunities and now failed to get that elusive 3-game winning streak this year. Matthew Fairburn, what did you see?
Yeah, it was one bad minute. Like you said, the Flyers didn't really take over so much as for a minute they took over. They got the Sabres had a power play that could have put them up 2-0, and instead they took a penalty, and that led to killing off a penalty. Then Connor Timmins took a penalty, and they were almost done killing that one off when Alex Tuck failed to get the puck out. Shot the clearing attempt at the only spot where there was a player, and that led to the first goal from the Flyers, which is the one the Sabres challenged. And that, I think, started off this series of calamitous events where I don't know if I don't really like the challenge personally. You know, Lindy Ruff's point is that you never know unless you challenge, but it was an iffy one at best. I don't think Tippett was ever actually in the crease, and I'm not sure how significant the contact they thought his stick made with Colton Ellis's blocker. But, you know, regardless of that, my thought was you've been on the penalty kill for a while. You don't want to go back on the penalty kill. It's a 1-1 game. Like, just keep going, especially with the evidence that you had. They challenged, they fail the challenge. They're back on the kill. Trevor Zegras scores a power play goal. You're down 2-1 in the blink of an eye. And then you're back at 5-on-5. Zach Benson puts a pass behind Tage Thompson coming out of the zone. It bounces off Tage Thompson, and then Tage Thompson's effort to get back into the play was definitely lacking. You know, if he stops on that puck and, you know, backtracks, that goal probably doesn't happen, but the puck ends up in the back of the Sabres net again. 3 goals in 59 seconds, and they never recovered. They got another goal, but they never, you know, that ended up being the game-winning goal right there. So they kind of controlled play for a long stretch of time after that, but it was a game where they let frustration creep in. Rasmus Dahlin took a 5-minute boarding penalty and was thrown out of the game in the second period. Well earned, I think. And, you know, probably will be subject to review from the league. And, you know, they skated out of there with a 5-2 loss. Not how they wanted to start the road trip, obviously. And the only game they play on this road trip against an Eastern Conference team, you know, the only 4-point game of the bunch. This was the team in the second wild card position at the start of the night. Sabres were 5 points back, and they finished 7 points back. So that's just more Jekyll and Hyde, you know, like we've been talking about.
Jekyll and Hyde, you know, I think to really sum it up, they got rattled early and they just couldn't fix it after that once they got rattled. And when a team gets rattled like that, you need your best players to steady the ship. They're usually getting the most ice time. They're the most skilled. You know, they're making a lot of money, whatever the case. And I think when you look at, you know, you mentioned Benson with that bad pass, Thompson's game overall. I look at Tuck. who did have a decent amount of blocked shots last night, but missing the net, starting to miss the net more. And it's not just Tuck,
Missing
by
the
the way.
net
And
and
then
that clearing attempt.
in the
That
clearing
clearing
attempt,
attempt
yeah.
started the whole thing. They coulda killed that penalty off. It would've been a 1-0 game, and back to 5-on-5. None of that ever happens. So,
Mhm.
it's not his fault that it turned into 3 goals, right? But it is a play that was simple enough. And, you throw it towards the boards or you pick your head up for a second to see where the other player is, but he put that clearing attempt in the only spot where there was a flyer and
Yeah.
ends up in the back of the net. So, yeah, like, he missed the net too. He missed some opportunities. That line played pretty well overall, but those little moments, those little brain farts from him, from Thompson, and then from Dahlin even later,
Darlene.
it's
Again,
like you're
frustration.
yeah, frustration on his part, brain fart on Tuck's part probably in that failed clear, and then on Thompson's part, it was just careless, it seemed like to me. I mean, a momentary lack of, you know, lack of effort, really. I mean, there's no other way to describe, getting back into the play in the manner that he did, kinda taking a wide circle and then not really bearing down in the defensive zone. So, yeah, those are your 3 best players, and I mean, throw Benson in that bucket as a
That's
one of
yeah.
your 5 best players of making that pass, up the middle of the ice. So, not Doan was great, but the rest of the
Yeah, I wanna
Sabres
get to Doan.
huge
Yeah.
drivers were not really going.
So, when you kinda digest what happened, a lot of the things I think that we're talking about was I think that game last night was another example of maybe more leadership needed for the team. Um, whether it's getting the guys fired up on the bench, calling your own timeout, as a player. You know what I mean? Not calling the timeout, with the ref, I'm saying, but like really the intention of what a timeout usually does to a team, players that can do that. Maybe there were, we don't see it always on TV. It was an away game, but we've seen it a lot with this team where once something happens, they can't kind of recover. I was kind of getting those vibes from the team last night. But what leadership doesn't do on the ice is, eradicate a lot of the sloppy plays. The puck was bouncing around a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. The puck was bouncy last night, but the Sabres just were sloppy. They were just not crisp with their passing. You have to be precise, hitting guys in stride, putting it in the right spot, putting it in the breadbasket. Even Darlene, I think, was it Darlene or was it Thompson to Darlene? I think it was Thompson maybe to Darlene on a power play near the end. Just totally missed putting in his breadbasket, missed an opportunity for a one-timer. We have a goalie moving side to side. But sometimes they were just simple passes too, where they just weren't flat. Got to flatten those out in the offensive zone. But there was really where I was noticing a lot of the sloppiness was in that defensive zone. You already talked about it with Tuck and a Benson pass. And it wasn't just those guys. Timmins, you mentioned it, had a bad pass late in a game that led to a goal. Timmins was showing some frustration last night. So it wasn't just, I'm not putting it all on the best players. Sometimes when Thompson, Tuck, Benson, Darlene aren't going, the other guys have to kind of pick it up when they're
It
not.
trickle it trickles down too, right?
It
Like,
trickled down. Yeah.
when your top players are getting frustrated or they're not sharp, it can trickle down for sure. And this is a common theme for the Sabres, I feel like, throughout the throughout the season. As far as in their losses, puck play and self-inflicted stuff is usually the culprit. You know, it's that Penguins game is another great example of just easy plays that, you know, end up going the other way. And they are now second in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals against. This was a team that focused a lot on defense, and they are, a bit better at, their expected goal share at 5-on-5 is 51%, which is decent. That's like 11th in the league. But the goals against, the goals are still going in. Some of that's goaltending, and some of it is just when they make an error, they make a big one. When they mess up big, and it ends up being a real quality chance the other way. Bo Byram has been on the ice for 29 5-on-5 goals against. Connor Timmins has been on the ice for 28. Those are big numbers at this point in the season. It's almost, it's more than a goal a game
Yeah.
that they've been on the ice for at 5-on-5.
3 giveaways for Bo Byram last night in the game.
And of course, you could say on the, micro game by game, it's like, oh, just because they were on the ice for a goal doesn't mean they did something wrong. But anybody who's been watching and you put up a number as big as 29 or 28 in Timmins' case, and if you've been watching these games, that there's stuff they're doing to contribute to that, right? And I think that is the big takeaway for me from this game. As I was going through the numbers last night, there's one player, one defenseman on the team that has been on the ice for more 5-on-5 goals for than against. And it's Matthias Samuelsson. Everybody else is in the negative at 5-on-5. And the blue line is the perceived strength of this team in some ways, right? It's where there's a lot of money tied up. It's where there's 3 top 5 draft picks. There's a lot of talent there, but it's not entirely a blue line problem, because we know defense is a team, collective, 5-man effort, and the goalie plays into that too in terms of some of these actual goals against numbers. But I do find myself most nights not knowing exactly what they're going to get out of certain guys on the blue line. You have a pretty good idea on Dahlin. He got off to a slower start than they would have liked, for obvious and justifiable reasons. Samuelson's been solid, and last night wasn't, the best game from him either, but I feel like
I noticed that with him.
The down games haven't been as frequent for him. Everybody's going to have games where they're not super sharp. Look at Winnipeg the other night and some of the world-class defensemen that they have and how they played. But I feel like Samuelson's been pretty steady, where you know what you're going to get. Bo Byram is like on a crazy roller coaster. Like, his highs are real high. His good games are really good. But there are moments throughout some of his bad games where you're just scratching your head at what he's doing. So when they're not playing well, it's puck play, and a lot of that starts in their own end, breaking it out, and the crispness of the passes that you're talking about. And if it's not clean, it gets ugly fast. When it's clean, it looks great. Like Monday night, they were zipping the puck around, and they look really good when they're doing that. But they're, like last night wasn't even a not ready to play situation, right? Like, competitive wise, I didn't really feel that. On the broadcast, they were saying, they weren't engaged in the game, or they didn't have the energy. Like, I didn't really feel that. It's like when they're not going, it's because they're just sloppy with the puck.
Yeah, it was just mental sharpness wasn't there.
And they canceled their morning skate yesterday. I mean, there is been I'm trying to find the pattern, and there's probably no pattern, but they were doing pretty good there for a little while when they took the day off before a game and then had a little, skate in the morning. They were taking some random days off, like unexpected days off, and then the next day coming out real sharp. They took, what was it? They took the day off before the Blackhawks game, I think. Yeah, because they lost to the Flames really bad, and it was a scheduled day off the next day, and they crushed the Blackhawks. Then the next day, I was expecting them to practice because it's Saturday, and they had an afternoon game on Sunday. They usually practice. They canceled it. They show up, and they beat the Hurricanes 4-1. So they had some of these, going. And then they practiced yesterday before they left town, and then, decided to not have the skate. So, I mean, who knows? But when you're thinking about the little things like the puck play, finding the pattern that works for your team. I'm not saying they were not sharp because they didn't have a morning skate. It's just a matter of like finding the right rhythm for your group of players that works. And in this case, what they went with didn't work.
Hindsight's always 20/20, and I think when you look at last night's game and the fact that they didn't get out there and get those touches in, get a feel, I think there is a connection there. It's easy to say now, and maybe they'll learn from it moving forward. Um, hey, just real quick, I didn't do the plugs. Okay, so everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel, find this podcast on Apple or Spotify, follow it, leave a 5-star review, and while you're here on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you know when a new video drops or when Matthew and I go live, thinking about doing some live hits when Matthew's out west traveling with the team next week. More to come on that. I have some business travel too, so we just got to find the right sweet spot. But I think Matthew and I have a sketch of a plan for how we're going to do that, and they will be live because I'm not going to have Matthew get up at 6:00 Eastern time when he's out in Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver. That would not be nice of me to do that. So there's your plugs. Matthew, Zach Benson almost gets his first goal of the season last night. One of those rare events when a Sabres forward got behind the D and got right on the doorstep, exactly where you want to see Zach Benson. But with the Sabres being 0-3 on challenges this year, and that's the stat from the broadcast. I ripped that from the broadcast last night. 0-3 this year on challenges. Tocchet takes a timeout, reviews it, buys some extra time to review it, and then the goal gets overturned because of an offsides call. And did it look like they were calling Benson being offsides? It looks like it, right? Because there were
I
other
think
players
so.
around him, and
Yeah.
they didn't really isolate. But my read on that, by the way, if Benson has possession of the puck, he's fine. And sometimes this drives me nuts. Was he took it with his boot? He accepted the pass with his skate, and I think that got him disjointed handling the puck as he entered the zone. I think if he would have made the attempt to get that puck on his blade, catch that pass with his blade, maybe it's a different outcome on the play. Maybe I'm nitpicking. I'm probably just nitpicking, but a missed opportunity there for Zach Benson.
Yeah, and it might seem like nitpicking in general on the part of the Flyers, like you're up 3 goals, call a timeout to check it out, and you call the challenge to review it. But those are the rules, right? You can call the timeout, and I don't think if you're the Flyers, you want a 2-goal game with 7 minutes to go against a team that's kinda controlling the play a little bit on you, and we saw can, score goals in bunches themselves,
It
against
was a brilliant
so
challenge.
it
Yeah.
it worked out really well. I find myself, uh, particularly with the goalie interference ones, I feel like the offsides ones, they may be happening rampantly around the league, but I haven't seen a lot of them in Sabres games in particular. The goalie interference ones are happening all the time, and there is absolutely no consistency with it. There's I have no idea what they're going to call, but I look at so many of them and think, like that one last night, I just thought, if this is goalie interference, like what are we doing? Like the goalies have to there has to be some sort of, you know, solution to all of this because it's gotten to the point where a goalie gets touched at all. And even if the goal is scored like a few seconds later, he has time to collect himself. It's like, oh, he had no chance to make the save. It's putting the goalies in these mindsets where they're getting hit and they're almost wondering about the interference call instead of just battling through it and playing the position and trying to stop the puck. It's if you're looking for offense, if the guy's not in the crease or if the guy's not, you know, mauling a guy, I don't know. It's really confusing. And that's why I just thought the challenge last night, it felt like throwing something against the wall and hoping you get one. I saw people comparing it to some of the ones that went against them recently, and I just didn't see it the same way. I didn't see meaningful contact, and Tippett, I don't think was even in the crease. His body kind of was, but his skates weren't ever. And so it was just a good screen.
I think I
And
texted you on that. I think I texted you during the game when that review was underway before it was even the determination was made by the officials. I think I said this one's on the video team up top for the
Yeah.
Sabres. Like, it was pretty clear that that wasn't gonna get overturned.
It could
I
be
just
a combination, like, video team could make the recommendation, and Lindy could be getting frustrated with these himself and saying, "You know what? Let's go. Let's see. Why not?" But I think you gotta take the game situation into account. Whoever
yeah,
is making that call, whether it's the video team or Lindy, whatever they told him the percentage chance was of getting it or how good they felt that they would have a chance at it, you gotta take the game situation into account. Like, it's just a 1-1 game. You've just been killing off the penalty. You're gonna
yeah.
throw your kill back out there. I just don't
Let it
like it,
let it
and
go.
yeah, just let it go and play the game. You're playing well. You're kinda controlling things. Just keep it going. It's very early in the game. This is not some sort of decisive goal, and they get a bad break on the second goal, right? It was a deflection. Trevor Zegras, the puck, like, ricocheted off a Sabre and ended up, in the back of the net, and then they shoot themselves in the foot on the third goal. So, but it all started with the challenge, and I understand people's frustration with the challenges overall, and I think the offside ones can be annoying because you slow it down so much to be like, oh nope, he was a couple inches offside here, never mind. But I mean, the rules are the rules, I guess. I'm not really on the side of more challenges most of the time. Challenges that take away offense too, nonetheless.
No, and it makes it like a football game too, where it just drags things
It's just
out.
slowing down, and it's like, oh, you know, like they scored that goal, and I ran upstairs to grab a drink and fill up my water bottle and came down, and I was like, what's going on? Like, and then it's like they're slowing down it's like, all right, well, I, I don't know why you would want to take offense out of the equation, in some of these cases. And I don't know. I think the same thing when I'm watching a football game too. It's like we got to stop after every play to make sure, you know, that so and so or even if they're not stopping the play, they're throwing a flag for something ticky tack, and it's like let's get some flow going, especially with hockey. Hockey's such a game of flow. Like keep the flow going and don't slow things down for a freaking offsides challenge. Like if it's not obviously flagged by Toronto, just like let it go.
You know, on a kind of a different note, I want to say it's like having a moment of deja vu where we've done a show in the past following a Sabres Philly game, and we talked about Philly getting a lead and then just shutting down the passing lanes. And we saw that, or shooting lanes specifically, actually, just shutting down all lanes. We saw that last night, I think. Philly got the lead and really kind of shut it down. Third period, you really noticed it when the Sabres were trying to move the puck around. And it was really evident on the power play. Sabres just 1 for 6 in the power play last night. And my only real thought, like, I don't want to break down the power play. I mean, we know that they just don't get the puck to the front of the net enough. When they do, they score. Zucker's goal, right? Like, and it's not the first time Zucker scored a goal that way this season, but I think too much on the outside. My only real note about the power play last night was Tuck potentially angling for $10 million annual salary, and he's not on PP1. Doesn't that seem weird? Like that.
Well, yeah. It's you wonder if there's a little cat and mouse game there, right? It's like I mean, if he's getting
That
power
was my
play
only
one time,
note
he's piling
from
up more points and uh I mean, he's getting these points, yeah, without the prime power play opportunities. And I think there's a balance of, right and left shots that they're looking for and obviously skill sets. They already have the big right shot in Thompson. They've got Doan out there.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show or not, if we just talked about it offline, but I don't know if the whole power play struggles if it should all be on Seth Appert. Everybody wants a boogeyman, but it's like it was Matt Ellis at first. Now it's Seth Appert. At some point, like the players on the ice are the ones making the plays, making the decisions. And this unit, when it's going, who's getting it going? It's Doan, it's Zucker. It was Norris the other night. Benson got it going a little bit with these net front plays. It's not the Darlene Thompson thing. It's not a Darlene big shot from the point. It's not a Tage one-timer that was the
Yeah.
bread and butter. It's like they got themselves into this mode where early in the season, for like a year and a half, that really worked, right? And they were cooking, the two of them, and they really had things working. It stopped working when teams, took it away, and they never had the other answer. And I feel like those two in particular defer to a lot of perimeter play on the power play, a lot of passing it back and forth, a lot of looking for that big shot. And the other guys on the ice are looking for the net front play. And
Yeah.
that's where the goals are scored. That's where most of the power play goals in the league are scored is right in front of the net. Everyone's not just teeing up one timers, trying to be Ovechkin. So there's remains issues with the power play. And then last night the penalty kill didn't come through. So
No.
bad special teams game right off the jump. And you find yourself, you know, what do they got to do on this road trip to convince you that they're legitimately gonna stay in the fight?
I mean,
Because
yeah,
right
I don't.
now
Yeah.
they're back below a 500 points percentage. They have the worst points percentage in the Eastern Conference once again. They are technically second to last in the Eastern Conference, but they have two more games played than the Florida Panthers, and the Panthers are 1 point behind them. Panthers also are the Panthers. And, you know, they might not finish ahead of the Sabres, but when they get healthy, there's reason to believe, given their track record, that they'll pass the Sabres in the standings. But they're back below a 500 points percentage. They spent like 5 days this season above a 500 points percentage. Last season, they spent 7 days above a 500 points percentage all season. 23 teams last year were 500 points percentage or better. So it's like this is not even an average bar that they're trying to clear. And every time they have a chance to get over it, they seem to lose. There another, as you pointed out, another failed attempt at getting a 3-game winning streak going. Got to stack them together at some point, and we're in December
Well,
now.
my thoughts on the road trip. I mean, look, coming in, like before they left for Philly, they had won 4 of their last 6. They were going on a 6-game road trip. My expectation is that they had 8 points they needed to get out of the 6-game road trip, and that doesn't change. So now you have 5 games left. You got to win 4 of them. That's my expectation. So win every game on this road trip except maybe the Edmonton one, and you're in business. And again, not looking ahead. I said it last time, but we looked ahead anyways. It's a winnable trip, man.
It is.
And this Jekyll and Hyde
Vancouver,
team may very well win 4 of the next 5.
they might win 4 of the next 5, and the one they lose will be in Vancouver, right?
Yeah,
That'll be
that's
what they
just
do,
yeah.
right? They'll beat Winnipeg, Calgary, and Edmonton on the back-to-back. They'll lose to Vancouver, who they're supposed to be. I mean, Vancouver's not a very good team. Seattle's pretty average. Um, Edmonton has been fighting it, but they're going to get games at home here, so that should help them. Winnipeg lost in overtime to Montreal last night, but played a better game than they did on Monday. But they're still without Hellebuck, so a gettable game. Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, you got to get 4 wins out of the 6 games on the trip. Like, find a way to get 8 points, and that keeps your forward momentum going as far as trying to climb the standings. But if you go 500, you're just at best treading water,
That's it.
and
Yep.
maybe not even. Like, maybe not even treading water. You're just kind of, running in place at that point. And other teams are going to keep getting points. They're 6-4 in their last 10. And so they've gained a small amount of ground on everybody else, but that's not really enough. You need the Flyers are 7-3 in their last 10. The Capitals are 9-1 in their last 10. The Lightning are 8-2 in their last 10. You need a stretch like that to really get things going. Even as wide open as the Eastern Conference is, it's going to be a lot of teams to jump as you get going. So I think it's also just knowing that they're capable of 4 wins in 5, winning 4 in a row or something that would help people get on board a little bit. But when every time they have a chance to get their third, they lose. It's like They had something like this going a couple of years ago, didn't they? Where they went the whole season without a 3-game winning streak.
Yeah.
It
We
was
kept talking about it.
Donnie's last year. They
It was
finally got
Donnie's
it in
last year.
February. I'm looking at it now. They got a 3-game winning streak in February, and then another one in March. But otherwise, they were win one, lose a couple, win a couple, lose one, and you can't. The reason they were in it, in 2022, 23 was because they were ripping off big chunks of wins. They had the one big losing streak that kind of screwed them, but the wild card right now is looking like potentially high 90s in points, at the current pace. So you got to pick it up.
High 90s. Yes. Yeah. And then, their best bet actually might be catching third place in the Atlantic. That's probably how it's going to shake out this year.
Yeah, the Atlantic
Um,
does not look good.
no, no.
Toronto's struggles could be for real. We'll see if they can pull it together, but the Panthers, it's like a race of how quick they can get healthy. And if they can't get healthy quick enough and they dig too deep a hole, they could be in trouble. So you have Montreal and Ottawa holding down those two spots in the Atlantic. Tampa looks like Tampa. So they'll be, despite injuries, they're going to get one of those three spots, I would think. But Montreal and Ottawa are, better than the Sabres, recently, but not prone, not immune to the mistakes of young teams and things like that. So you could catch them, but
I want you to go. Do you have the NHL.com standings page up by chance?
I do.
Go and look at it. Can you do me a favor in real time? Just go and look at it by division. And there's something that really stands out when you look at the Atlantic Division. Tell me what you see. It's going to stand out when you look at it. If you don't get it within 5 seconds, I'll tell you. But sort it by division. Step back, look at it, tell me what you see.
Tampa's the only team with a positive goal differential.
Yes, Tampa is plus 18. Every other team in the Atlantic Division is in the red. That tells you that this is still gettable. If you can win 4 of your next 5, it's not like it's an illustration of what you were just saying. That right there, all of that red. Isn't that wild?
I mean, they're 4 points back of Boston, Detroit, and Ottawa, who all have 30 points. And only the Senators have played fewer games. So, Detroit's minus 11 goal differential, Boston's minus 4, Ottawa minus 2. Sabres are minus 9, so actually not even the worst goal differential in the division. Detroit holds that honor. But if it's going to be one of those three teams, I don't know if you would consider Montreal like a surefire bet. I don't know if I would.
I'm
But
not. They're young. Because they're so young,
yeah,
you can't.
say it's going to be two of those 4 teams. I mean, you got to throw Toronto and Florida in the mix too, because if you're going to say Buffalo has a chance, you got to say the teams that have been there and have,
Everyone has a chance.
everyone's got a chance. But the wild card does look like it might stay in the Metro this year.
Yeah. So
It's possible.
if I guess for Sabres fans, I think is look at the standings that way. Keep an eye just on the division and not so much the wild card. I think that's going to be the talk track for us here on this podcast. Until the Sabres play themselves out of hope, we're going to be talking about that.
Which are getting close. They could do that on this
And
trip.
it's like we said early, it's getting late early. This road trip is massive. And look, just because they lost the first one, winnable games coming up. And a player that can help them win some games here had another good one last night. Josh Doan, 9 shot attempts. Yeah. I think he was excellent effort again. He's just been bringing it pretty consistently, bringing it. He's only had a couple dips this year, and they're not really radical dips. But 9 shot attempts, I think it was 6 on goal. Yeah.
Yeah, led the team in shots, shot attempts, 5 high danger chances on his own. Had the assist on the power play. I feel like his dips, he's still doing the right things. It's just like you can tell he doesn't have the same juice, right? Whether he's getting fatigued or whatever. But the effort and the, smarts are there regardless. It's just, sometimes you're playing with heavier legs than other nights. But the dips are very infrequent. I think he's probably their most consistent player all year long. And I think if you go by game scores on hockey stat cards, yeah, he's got the second top average game score. Among the Sabres players. Tuck is
Mhm.
first. So, you know, it's Tuck, it's Doan, it's Benson, and then it's Isak Rosen, fourth. So he was
2
pretty
goals last
steady.
night for the Amerks.
Um,
Yeah.
wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to get him back in the mix. But Doan has just been the guy that keeps things together. Whatever line he's on, he seems to lift them up. And it's his attention to detail, it's his energy, it's his willingness to get to the area of the ice where most of the goals are scored. It's a willingness and a know-how, and it feels like this is a guy that you don't want to waste a whole lot of time before you get him locked up, right?
Yeah.
I'm if Tuck wants to put things on the back burner, I'm working on an 8-year deal with Doan. I want to lock him up for 8 years, and even if, the number is a little higher, I think he's a critically important piece to what they're building, along with Zach Benson, who's an RFA. But these types of players, when there was so much of an emphasis on acquiring skill over the years, and so many of the draft picks early in this regime were focused on skill and offensive skill, these are the guys that are really tying things together for this lineup. And, like Zucker to an extent, kind of has a little bit of that. But Doan has been, I think you could argue, their best player this season, their most consistent player for sure. And, a lot of the numbers would say he's been one of their best. He's at what, 18 points now? Is that
He's
right?
got tied his career high, didn't he?
19 points. Tied his career high
19.
with 19 points. He's already set his career high with 8 goals. So that's been a nice little hit for the Sabres. And Kesselring hasn't factored into the equation of that trade yet, but even Doan for Paterka almost looks like a fine swap for Buffalo.
No, I think he's just, anytime we talk about giving someone an 8-year contract right now, it gets you nervous. There's some scar tissue here from some of them. But I think when you see the player's effort, the energy that he brings, the consistency, in a game last night where they had to match, it was pretty clear early on, even before the game got out of hand. I think the thought was the Sabres just have to match Philly's physicality tonight. He was the one guy I think that was out there attempting to do that, where others were just kind of not having their best nights. That calamity that you referenced earlier was occurring. Doan was kind of the steady, trying to fight his way through the headwinds of what was happening with his teammates
And
last
isn't
night. He didn't
this
have yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it wasn't a perfect game from anyone,
No.
including Doan last night. But I guess where I'm going, I'm trying to bring it back to that a night like that, where he's the guy almost leading the charge. We always say dragging the team into the fight. I feel a little more comfortable if I'm assessing where the Sabres are at, earmarking that guy for an 8-year deal.
Yeah, you know what you're like, I'm not ready to hand out 8-year deals left and right, but if I'm doing it for the guys that are bringing that component to the game. Now, all of this is with the caveat of, whatever the number is, the AAV that he's looking for. But getting him locked up, he just feels like he's going to be an important player every year. His floor feels incredibly high. Like at the worst, he's a really good middle six winger for you. And I think if you think about the teams that are giving the Sabres trouble this year, it's teams like Philly, these physical, tight, checking teams. Think about that Calgary game, right? Calgary's not a good team, but they're heavy
Yeah,
and
power.
and
Yep.
they play hard, and those are the teams that are giving the Sabres problems. Is that a roster construction thing, or is that just a mentality thing from too many of the guys? I think some of these guys are plenty big, right? And they're capable of playing that game when they really want to. I do think on the blue line is where it shows up, though, right? You're not small on the blue line, but you're not overly mean and physical. And so it can wear them down and maybe lead to some of like maybe this isn't just not being mentally sharp or sloppy or whatever. Maybe it's being forced into it a little bit by these heavy teams, these tight checking teams. I mean, Boston's another one that likes to play that way. We know Florida likes to play that way when they're healthy. And those are the teams that give the Sabres a lot of trouble. And Doan is one of your fixers there. He's one of the guys that can help you play that game. Benson's one of the guys that can play that game. You know, we know he didn't have a good one last night. But part of why I don't feel crazy saying give Doan an 8-year contract is the effort and what he is in the locker room and the type of person he is and probably the untapped potential too, right? He's still pretty young. If you get him at a reasonable number in a rising cap world, you get him here, you know, get him to commit. They haven't gotten a guy to commit to an 8-year contract in a while, right?
He's one I think that probably would, you
I
know,
think he
if
might.
you,
I think.
you
I mean,
know,
look, his dad's been able to watch him play every home game. You know, he's uh, his dad's a scout for Toronto, and yet has been here a bunch. And I feel like he would probably commit. I don't know. This is a really, you know, interesting piece of the puzzle. You know, as far as thinking about the future of this team, they have 3 of their big pieces as RFAs. And I'm counting Kesselring as that because he's a big piece of a significant trade. He hasn't been healthy enough to show you exactly what he is and what he deserves maybe on that next contract. But
yeah.
Doan, Benson, and Kesselring all being RFAs, those are pretty critical contracts. And, you know, when we talk about next steps for this team, whatever that looks like, whether they climb back into the playoff race or not, those are the guys that you're looking to push things forward with, I would think. Age range, skill sets, all of that. And I don't know if Doan is signing on the dotted line yet, not knowing necessarily what the vision is going forward. Not that he's going to be the
Yeah.
type that's like needs, maybe he's the type that doesn't even need to know. He's like, there's an 8-year deal. I'll play for whatever coach, for whatever GM, like 8-year deal. I'm going to fix this thing. Like
Guy
that
was
could,
undrafted in his first year, gets into the NHL, gets moved, a team wants him, and then they show even that they want him even more. I think that he would be bought in, especially in this area. And you think about what his father told him when he got traded, and it seemed like he latched onto that, right? Go and be an agent
and
of
he,
like a solution. Yeah.
and he told me at one point before, maybe it was before Utah came to town, like that there was a part of him that maybe didn't even realize it until he left, but getting to be his own man a little bit
Yeah.
and getting away from, you know, he loved that organization and there were so many people that meant so much to him, but a bunch of them knew him since he was born, basically. And so, you know, the fan base was always, he was always going to be Shane's kid. And out here, he gets to carve out his own story, his own path. And there's definitely something about him that I think is wired to want to fix this type of situation. So I wouldn't have any I wouldn't have any hesitation doing an 8-year deal. I mean, the number would matter, and I got to dive into some of the comps to see. But the more he plays, the more the number's going up. Frankly, I mean,
Well, it's funny that you say the more he plays. And I know what you mean. You're talking about gets further into the season and accumulates
right?
more points but what I'm saying is the challenge to the coaching staff for this player, in my opinion, is how do you get him more ice time? He's averaged
Yeah,
15 and a half time on ice this year, 15:34, I think it is. Last night he had 16:32. And when you go back and you look at his most recent game, so 16:32 last night, 14:43 against Winnipeg, where maybe they didn't need him. They could roll 4 because they were up, but they haven't been up that much this year. Let's face it. 12:33 against Minnesota, 16:55, 16:02, 14:55, 16:58, 15:26. He's not blowing it up. He's being very productive. in what I would call mid-range minutes. And I know that's kind of where he's at, but he's also getting quality power play time, which should pad his time on ice. How do they get him more? I'm not
So
asking you to give an answer,
my
but it's just like,
idea no, I
don't you
have an
think he
idea.
needs more?
I mean,
Yeah.
my idea would be to try Norris and Thompson as your top 2 centers and have Benson and Doan as your, one of them on each line and give them, you can spread out the top minutes if you do that. Whether you want to put Benson with Tage because they've had a little something going in the past, and you can try Doan with Norris, or if you want it to be, Norris and Benson because Benson has played well with both of those guys. You want to make the right match with left-hand shots and right-hand shots because Tuck can play on one of those lines. Maybe he gets to play with Norris because I mean, this is a guy that he's playing pretty well this year, all things considered, and kind of whoever he plays with, he seems like he finds a way to make it work. But that's where I would look to go is just get these guys into kind of bigger roles that way. With attach him to one of those big centers, balance out your lines with two. Tage was better at center so far this year. He's been better at center than he has been on the wing, and sort of this. I mean, last night that was a real tough defensive play he made. Just one that you can't have, and one that you better hope Bill Guerin was busy watching something else. I mean, I think he's pretty much made the Olympic team at this point, according to Michael Russo. Michael Russo seems pretty confident that Tage Thompson's going to make it, and Michael Russo's as plugged in as anyone on Team
Mhm.
USA, given his proximity to Bill Guerin. But if there's any doubt, games like that don't help. Plays like that don't help, and his sort of up and down nature of his play away from the puck, I think, was probably the number one concern last year. But I think if you put him at center, you all of a sudden have the potential to have 2 really strong lines because you have two wingers in Doan and Benson who I feel like can really lift their line with the way that they play on the forecheck and the way they're able to retrieve pucks and the playmaking skills that they have. So I want to attach him to one of those guys, Norris or Thompson.
And it gets you out of the situation of having Ryan McLeod overplaced in the lineup. He hasn't had a bad season. I'm not saying that, but there are nights where you don't notice him much. And I think maybe getting him into more of that defensive lockdown, shutdown, use your speed down the middle of the ice,
What
where
nights
the
do you not
offense.
notice them? Probably the nights they're playing those tight checking teams, right?
Yes, right,
If we went
right.
back and we matched it up, like what are the nights
Hmm.
we're down on McLeod? It's probably those nights. That's not his game. He's really not physical.
You can push him out of the game.
Yeah, he's not super
You can.
strong and he's not super physical.
Yep. So I think that's a good solution, I guess, because when I was looking at Doan, I don't have it up in front of me. I've switched to something else here on my screen, but I think that, and I know you can have multiple windows, guys, um, that I think he's only had over 18 minutes twice this year. And they weren't all those overtime games that the Sabres have been in that stretch and the shootout games and things like that. He's only been over 18 minutes twice this year. And they were in games that they weren't those overtime games. So I think that there's an opportunity, and maybe you found the solution to get Doan some greater minutes. Hey, we are almost near the end of our show today, Matthew Fairburn. We have a few minutes left. We don't have to go very long on this topic. Like this video, by the way. Like the video. You guys
The
showed
likes
up
have been
again, by
helping,
the way.
man.
They showed
Big
up again. It's
big
really helping.
performance.
Yes, but it's
There's no
helping.
Jekyll and Hyde. There's no Jekyll and Hyde nature to the likes right now. We're just
No,
going
I'm
in
not.
one direction to the moon.
I'm not polishing the apples of our fans, but they've been showing up, doing what we ask of this, and I appreciate it because we're getting more people now, new people seeing the show because of all the comments and all the thumbs up. So please keep doing that. And watch, it's going to dip because I forgot to grovel
Right. You got
at
to
the
beg.
beginning of the show today. Half asleep Kris just jumped right in and wanted to talk about the sloppiness and the overall shittiness of the Sabres last night. But hey, just real quick, who are you giving the net to next?
I guess. Well, it's interesting because Initially, I was gonna say Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Do you wanna go back to the same goalie that the Jets just saw? Does that matter to you at all?
My instinct is to go back. I want to see how Alex Lyon has done, particularly in Winnipeg, in that arena, lower ceiling, different sight lines than a normal arena. I want to see how he's done there historically. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but Luukkonen coming off the win, if you go into the system of riding a guy who's won, like they had to go back to Luukkonen after. So Ellis wins in Minnesota. Normally he would get the next start, but it was kind of a quick turnaround,
Yeah, they
right?
got
And
in
that's why they
really
did.
late on
Yes.
Saturday. It was a long flight. Guys probably didn't get to bed until like 4 AM, and so Luukkonen
So
was
the
fresh at
Winnipeg game would have been an Ellis start normally per whatever system we think is being used, right? So that's why they went back to Ellis last night, I'm assuming. Luukkonen, though, had a win in his last start. Happened to be playing the same team. Maybe you go back there. My reaction, my initial thought is probably Luukkonen. And that
Here's
doesn't
the
help you with the whole Alex Lyon get him going
figure out what's
issue.
going on, right? I mean, you're gonna need
Yeah.
to use 2 in Alberta, so you gotta figure that out because you play back to back. That's really the only time you need to use 2. Maybe the better question, and it ties into that question, is what do they do to get a 7th defenseman on this roster? Because Lindy Ruff said they would probably like to have a 7th defenseman when they head to Canada for the Canadian portion of this trip. Seattle's at the tail end of this as well. You're changing time zones. You're heading farther away than just Philadelphia. They knew they had 6 healthy, so they could get away with just going for a day, uh, and kicking the can down the road on the decision. But they have 6 defensemen, and one of them could be under uh, review for the hit he had last night. So, what are you looking to do? Who goes? I mean, Osland had under 10 minutes of ice time last night. So, is
Yeah, he was
that
right around
your
10, right? Yeah.
is that like simplest, easiest thing gets it done? Do you put done on waivers? Does Kozak go to IR because he didn't play last night? He's dealing with a minor injury. He's a little banged up. Missed the last 2 games. You could IR retroactive to last Saturday when he got hurt. But I don't know.
Well,
That's still just a temporary solution because he's seems like he's not that injured. Lindy Ruff keeps saying he could probably play through it. It's just 80% of Kozak isn't as good as 100% of Dunn or something, whatever calculation they're going with, trying to get him healthy. And so that's not really going to buy you a ton of time. You have to make a decision if you want to carry 7 defensemen, and just, you can't go out there with 6. That would be reckless. We were talking yesterday about really not a smart way to go about it, but because they're going out west, it crossed my
no,
mind. Well, maybe
geez.
they could pull up Reddy Murka for if they really needed someone. Go out there with 6, and if you really need someone, pull up Reddy Murka for a game because he's out in Seattle and it's easy enough for him to get there. But especially playing a back to back, I guess they do have a little extra time because these games are starting at 10 Eastern, right? Where guys could a guy could get on the plane and get to Edmonton or Calgary, but I just don't think you want to go out there with 6.
Yeah, normally you can only there's like 4 conditions where you can call up a junior player once they're reassigned. And there is one kind of vague out where technically they could. Usually it's an emergency recall situation where you've already called one up on emergency and you're kind of out of bodies where if you can dip into that junior player if you're on your second emergency. I have all the rules written down. I'm not going to bring them up now. Like put it this way. I know that he's there. He's in Seattle. You need to take an extra defenseman with you. You are trying to make the Stanley Cup playoffs, okay? And if you think, oh, well, if I need to call up an 18-year-old kid who clearly isn't ready, because if he was, he'd be here just to plug a hole because you didn't bring an extra defenseman on your road trip. It's like not bringing extra underwear if you shit your pants when
Right.
you go on vacation, right? Like you take, like, what are you
You do that
doing?
often?
You're
Does that happen to
I
you
do.
usually on
Oh,
that?
I have a great shit my pants story back on the 4th of July, like 20 years ago. But anyways, no, I'm not taking an extra
Well,
defenseman.
that's the
Like,
thing. You gotta take the
yeah,
extra
like,
underwear regardless. I mean, even if you don't think it's gonna happen, you gotta take it. I mean, that's one of
yeah.
one of my, packing quirks. It's like you gotta have, as many extra pairs as you can fit. But the Sabres are in a spot where the de like, whatever decision they have to make is not necessarily a permanent one, but it has the potential to be permanent, right? They could lose Dunn on waivers. Uh, Kozak, I don't think is in this bucket, but they could lose him on waivers. So are they going to just go with the easy one and go with Osland, or
Well,
have
yes,
they
they are actually. Go ahead. Well, finish up. Yeah, that's
probably,
what they're going to
or
do.
do you make a
Yeah.
decision on the goalies? But I don't know that we've gotten there yet.
No, you need a goalie to jump out, and that's why you got to get Alex Lyon playing. You need one of these guys to say, "Hey, I'm here for a little. I'll be hot for the next 5 games." That's all you need.
Right.
But really, what it is I think we just talked about it. How do you get Doan more minutes? Split up Tage and Norris and get them being 1-2 center, bump McLeod down. That creates less of a need for Ostlund. And you're already seeing the signs of how Noah Ostlund's ice time's been the past couple of games, right? 10:34 last night, 12:12 previous two. They're already kind of weaning him down. So I think the answer is there. And you got to take an extra defenseman. Got to take an extra defenseman. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm
Yeah,
at.
it just that is more important than
Make
whatever
the easy move.
experience Ostlund gets on this long West Coast trip. He already made the trip to Utah and Colorado, and
Yeah, he's
you
seeing the
know,
world.
yeah, I mean, he's it would be nice to get him this experience on the road, especially with a long trip. But yeah, it's the easiest move, but it's also probably the right one if the depth chart shakes out that way, right? You split up Norris and Thompson, which you now have a good excuse to do. You couldn't split it up after Monday, right? Norris was cooking, and you're not going to break up a good thing. And maybe they'll feel similarly about that even still, because that game's not that far in the rear view and they're playing against the same team on Friday. So they might not be in a hurry to break it up, but it would solve the roster puzzle a little bit. And you have, when Kozak gets healthy, that's another option at center, at wing, in the bottom six. So Ostlund does end up getting squeezed out of ice time, and he's not getting real power play minutes either. So that starts to become, you're starting to see the signs that they're heading in that direction, maybe.
All right. Well, I still get an answer. I just still really didn't get an answer out of you about who the goalie is going to be, but let me share some numbers with you, maybe help you. Just at a high level, it's not home and away splits against Winnipeg. Alex Lyon's 1-1 in his career. His save percentage against the Jets is, I think, his second worst against an opponent. It's like 842 or something like that. Goals against is over 4. Not great. Doesn't look
I
good.
think I'm going back to Luukkonen.
UPL 2-2-1, 920 save percentage, 2.38 goals against. Some of his better numbers. Again, home and away combined. This isn't Winnipeg, in Winnipeg only.
I think I'm
And
going back
UPL's
to
coming off the
Luukkonen,
win. Yep.
and I'm going back to Luukkonen. There's a little something with he's probably going to go against Comrie again, right? Like, let Luukkonen go against his old, remind him of the last time he was in a 3 or 4 goalie rotation, whatever the hell it was when Comrie was here, a guy he used to battle with. I mean, I think I'm going back to him. It worked on
Yep.
Monday, played well on Monday. I actually think lately he's probably playing the best out of those guys.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel most confident that they'll get a decent game when he's in the net, which is saying something because I don't feel all that confident in any of the 3 right now, and they probably don't either. But I think I'm going back to Luukkonen on Friday, and then you figure it out from there because they don't play again until Monday after that.
Monday. So if you think that, yeah, he's the least likely to be moved because he's less attractive because of the contract, then you might as well get him right so you can make him useful while he's here. That's, I think, the overarching thought that I have when it comes to the goaltenders, which again leads me to believe when they do have to get rid of the 3, the easy move is Colton Ellis. And I'm not moving off of that yet. But we'll see how that goes. We have a lot of time to talk about it. We're still early in this season. They still have 3 goaltenders. I can't
It's
believe
a
it.
daily topic. It's a
I can't
everyday
believe.
type of
Yeah.
topic. I mean, it was supposed to be a temporary solution, and has become somewhat permanent. And they're one of only a couple teams in the league going with the 3 goalie thing this year. So maybe some of it depends too on, to a smaller extent, Levi, right, and how he's looking in the AHL and whether he can be your de facto third goalie. But feels more like indecision at the NHL level and trying to figure out which of these 3 guys is gonna be the odd man out.
Yeah. Come back next time to the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show for more goalie talk, because you can almost guarantee that we will be talking about it. Devin Levi, 26-30 last night in a 4-3 overtime loss to Utica. Matthew Fairburn, let's get out of here. I said it was going to be a short show. I lied. We're over an hour in. If you could please do your plugs.
Yeah, you can head to theathletic.com/sabres, find everything I write there. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Like the video. Even if you don't watch, just click and like the video. If you're somebody who listens to audio, find us there. Like the video. Makes Kris really happy. He updates me throughout the day about how many likes we have. Let's make that number a high one. So that's where you can find me. I'll be heading out west here soon to meet the team in Calgary. So I'll have plenty from on the ground in Alberta and Vancouver. Looking forward to that. And we will talk to you at some point next week. Early in the week, probably. Maybe
Sounds
live.
good. Maybe live. No guarantees. Let's not make guarantees. Let's just do a surprise pop-up if we
tease.
do. Quit teasing me. Quit teasing the audience, more importantly. Forget about me. For Matthew Fairburn, you just heard him. You can find all his work at theathletic.com/sabres. Get over there. Get a subscription for people in your lives for the holiday season coming up. It's virtual, so you can still jam all sorts of crap in the stocking. You don't need to make room for that athletic subscription. For the production crew who is polishing up their cowboy boots for this road trip, they're going to give them, stuff them in Matthew's suitcase so he can walk around looking like a local. I'm Kris Baker. Thanks for making the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show part of your routine. Hit that like button. We'll see you next time.